All right. Gotta choose the right camera for this. Maybe not. So, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, and welcome to our day two, or the second part of this e-learning dashboard that we have been building. I'd like to remind us that the primary objective for this exercise is build the skeleton of what that dashboard is supposed to look like by basically creating the data model. So if I'm able to create a data model for you and write the necessary DAX formulas that we probably might want to use for visualization, then you are going to use your own handwriting to build the dashboard itself. I'll probably provide some ideas. But the longer goal is for you to be able to build a dashboard that you want to have as part of your own project portfolio uh, as far as Power BI is concerned. So we have basically started the class somehow the other time, and we were unable to complete the class in the sense that the recording was a little bit cut short. So people who were unable to attend that class live and were relying on that recording were unable to get the full picture of what we covered in the class. Therefore, this class is going to be like a little bit of revision and also to take it a step further to be able to capture everything we did in that our last class. So I think I'm going to start by explaining our objectives first of all. So what we are trying to do is to build a dashboard for an e-learning platform that's got some data sets. Some data sets from their platform, and we described first of all the business model, right? So the first thing you have to understand before you are able to work on any kind of data set is to understand what is the business of that data. So if you don't understand the business of the data, then you don't have business working on the data, right? You can quote me on that. If you don't understand the business of the data, you don't have business working with that data set. All right. So for e-learning, basically, you have to understand what the business looks like. So, on the business side of things, when we say somebody has an e-learning platform, it simply means that they have courses that people can go to take, mostly self-recorded courses or courses that have already been recorded, and you will have to take it by yourself as a student, using your own timing at your own pace and all of that. So typically, how everything happens is we do have courses, obviously. So the courses are more or less like the products, and then the students that come in take the courses are more or less the customers. So these are the customers. Okay. So the way everything is going to start is that this customer will have to do a sign up for a start. So you go and you sign up on the platform, right? Now, when you sign up on the platform as a student, it doesn't mean that you have purchased a course. So the first step is so that you'll be able to have your username or your user email and your password to have access to everything on the platform. So after you sign up on the platform, then you can now enroll for a course, right? So you now do your course enrollment. Now, when you enroll for the course, then you will now start to take the course actually, because enrolling for the course does not mean that you have started to take the course. So after enrolling, then you take the course, and after you take the course, which means if you are able to complete the course, right? So if you complete the course, then you will have a certificate if that is possible. So you can expect that an e-learning business or an e-learning platform have data that centers around things like this, right? So you have data that centers around courses, data that centers around students, data that centers around enrollment, completion, and things like that. And that's exactly what we have. So in case you are going through this for the first time, you will have to go and grab that data set that we used. It is in the class file. So if you go to the platform on Lighthall, You go to the class page where you are currently watching right now. When you go to class files, you are going to see the e-learning data. So let's start by, again, going very quickly over what the data set looks like. So on the first worksheet, we have the description of all the fields that we have in the data set from all the tables, which for every one of us right now, we should have an understanding of what these things are meant for, because we now have a basic understanding of what the e-learning business looks like. So first, there is a dimension table of courses that has the IDs, the names, and then the types of courses. Are they self-paced courses? Are they tests? Are they surveys? Are they live online courses? And then the duration of the courses as well. Then we have a quiz dimension. So, when you take a course online, there's a likelihood that within that course, there are going to be quizzes that you'll have to take before you progress to a next section, just to test your knowledge to see how far you are getting the concept that is being taught. So there's a quiz dimension that lists out the different quizzes within the platform and the courses that holds or that has those quizzes. Then we do have our users dimension as well. So if you remember that the first thing that happens is your users are the customers and they are also the students, and they basically have to do a sign up first. So when they sign up, we have their data right here for signing up, right? So the user ID for the person signing up, unique for every single person. And then when they sign up to the platform, what's the name, what's the last name. Then we now have the enrollment data, right? So enrollment is different from users because the users just captures the information of the students, while the enrollment captures information about the courses that the students have been enrolled into. So first, there is an enrollment ID, obviously, that makes every enrollment unique. This is where you are going to expect that one student will probably enroll to 5 courses, right? That's possible. So if you go to the users table, student on the users table is unique. So this Cindy Jones, for example, is one person. However, Cindy Jones as one person can actually have several records on the enrollment table, as long as Cindy Jones is enrolled to several courses, right? So technically speaking, this enrollment table is a fact table. This is not a dimension table. So the first 3 courses is a dimension table, just describing the courses we have. Quiz is a dimension table describing each quiz and the properties of the quizzes. Then the users is also a dimension table for the students, while enrollment actually is a fact table, right? So we need to get a good understanding of what the enrollment is about. So first of all, when did you enroll, or when did the user enroll for the course? That's what we have as quiz.created at. Then who is the user that is enrolling, right? So if you want to get the name of the user, you have to go to check the users table. But we do have the user IDs right here. And then item.course ID is the ID of the course that the student is enrolling into. Remember that we also have our courses dimension right here, right? So if you want to know which course it is, you will go to the courses dimension to find out the name of the course, right? So on the enrollment tables have what? The course ID. Then we have our percentage completion, okay? And what this tells you is that this data set is a data set that is updated based on let's call it a time shot, or probably a snapshot, right? So if you go into the database right now, your expectation is to have certain changes within this our enrollment table, right? Since it's about, so if you go to the database today, what you see on the database might be different from what you are going to see in the database tomorrow. And some of the places where you should expect changes are the following. So let's say that we have a new enrollment. One new person is signing up for a course, then you should expect to have another complete row of data, right? Another complete row of data to capture that new enrollment. However, if there is no new enrollment, you go into the database. The fact is that people are continuing to take the courses. Therefore, you can expect that this completion items dot percentage completed column can continue to update as students continue to take the courses. So every time you go into the database, this is a key column that will continue to be updated, right? That's what makes this a fact table. A fact table is a table that changes based on activities, right? All right. So now, apart from the completion percentage, you also have completed arts, which ideally is supposed to capture some kind of date, right? You should capture some dates, and you should only expect to have dates in the completed arts when the completed percentage is up to 100%, right? So if you go there now, you are going to see these ones that have 100% completion. They have dates. Then there is also a third column here about, just saying whether the course or this enrollment by this person is the enrollment that the person has already completed, in the sense that has the person gotten 100%, has the person gone through 100% of the course, do all the quiz videos, just complete the course at 100%. So that's going to give you like a true and false, right? So technically, these three columns are together. As a matter of fact, you probably don't even need two of them, right? So ideally, this one is responsible for generating the completed art, because if this is not 100%, you won't have a date for this completed art, right? And if this is not 100%, then this is going to be false, right? Only true when it is complete. Then you also have, item dot started, which in our case is, when you start the course, you probably just sign up and then you log out again, right? So that doesn't mean that you have started the course. You probably have not played it yet. So when you start to play the course for the first time, that's when you have item that started as, that shows the date and the time when you start to play the course. And then this activated at, it's a column that, as I the last time, we are not sure what this actually means, in the context of this our reporting. So that's one gray area that we are not going to use right now, because we don't know how it fits into the grand scheme of things. Then item dot updated at column, that's the column that that indicates, so every time you to sign into your account and you play your course, obviously this percentage is going to change, right? Because now if this person goes in to sign in and they play the course, now maybe they watch another 2 hours, right? So if you watch another 2 hours of the course, then you are basically moving towards completing the course gradually, and then you are going to move towards getting 100%. If that is the case, then you are going to have an updated at right here. Okay, so that's our major fact table. Then, apart from this major enrollment fact table, we also have a quiz detailed table, which is just a table that captures every information about quizzes that have been taken. So if a student takes a quiz, for example, then they are going to have records on the quizzes table, and it's detailed because it captures the question by question for each student and whether the student has gotten this correctly or not. So if you want to do some analysis of the quizzes to find out if we probably have some questions that are too technical, this question people are just filling it out, then we'll be going to the quiz details section to find out the questions that people are failing often and often and often, and they probably want to reward the questions, or maybe take it out, or maybe do an extra video to cover the concepts that should address that question. So that's the quiz detailed. Then we have the quiz summary, which does not have the detailed level of the questions within the quizzes. It just simply has, okay, so this student, you took this quiz or so dates and you scored 100%, right? So this is quiz summary. This one is quiz detailed. Hey, student number one, you are taking a quiz. You are taking this quiz. The first question of the quiz, you said it is true. and your answer was correct. The second question, you said it is what? This is the question for the second one, and you selected this answer, and your answer was also correct. So this is detailed, while this other one is just a summary. You took five, you scored 5, you got 100%, right? So that's the data set, and you can think about several things that can be created from this entire data. There are a lot of things that can come out from this, and we can go like a complete 3 months still fleshing out details from the data set. So now I'm going to bring it into Power BI very quickly, much more faster than we did the other time. I'll just simply run through the transformations that we did and then connect the data model and create our date table, and then very quickly replicate the measures that we created the other time. Right now, before I do that, I think it's also ideal that I talk about our reports that we're trying to create. So first, we always say the purpose of data analysis is to what again? Is to improve decision making, right? The purpose of analyzing data is to support better decision making. One thing about decision making is that if you think about decision in the context of businesses, we should say that there are typically 3 levels of making decisions. There are 3 levels for decision making. There is an executive level of decision making. So there's executive level, and there is a tactical level of decision making, and then there is also an operational level of decision making. Okay, now what each of these things mean is at the executive level of decision making, they are drawing out long-term strategies, right? So long-term. So these decisions are going to affect the organization in the long term, in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, right? So this is where they make decisions that are of long-term strategic importance, right? So long-term strategies, that's what these are about. Then at the tactical level, there are medium term now. So these are medium term strategies, maybe for a year, maybe for a quarter, maybe for a month, as the case may be, or even for a week if possible, right? Just create the tactics, for the next project that you want to handle. And then there is also the operational level decisions that is the day-to-day running, right? So this will affect the day-to-day running of the business. That's at the operational level. So now, whenever you have to create any dashboard or any report, as a matter of fact, all dashboards and reports that you see within an organization is supposed to be tied to any of these 3 levels, right? It's tied to any of these 3 levels. But majority of the ones you are going to find, which is why people will subscribe to Power BI in the first place, so that people can carry their reports and have them handy on the go, right? People can sign into Power BI and see things. That basically means that majority of dashboards and reports cater for operational decision making. That's what it means, and that's what you're going to find in real life, right? So there are still, some levels of reports that are going to be based on executive and tactical levels, right? Now, if you want to go into the details of how to know the differences between these 3 things, right? So how you can know the differences is this: if you have to use Power BI to design a report or a dashboard where you have to go and do a presentation, right? You have to go and do a presentation. Then it is mostly executive or tactical level analysis that you are carrying out. That's why you're going to have to go to do a presentation so that they can plan for the medium or for the long term. But if you have to build a report or a dashboard for a department, for example, in an organization that they say, hey, we need this report, we want to be using it to do so. We need this report, we want to be using it to do so. Then it is mostly an operational report that you are building, which again is the majority of the case that we have. All right. So for us, we are going to build first, or should I say we built, and we are going to quickly review what we built. So what we built the first time is a report that shows us a couple of things from this our e-learning data to assist in the day-to-day management of the e-learning platform or the e-learning business, right? Now, some of the insights or some of the measures or some of the metrics that we monitored, if I can still remember them, are enrollments. Okay, so one thing that we also talked about is the fact that for every report you want to build or for every report that you are building, there is always the time granularity of that report. So what makes it useful? You know, when they say information is only useful when it is timely, right? Therefore, even when you are building dashboards and reports, your dashboard and report typically will cover a period or a range of time that is relevant. Now, for a business that is an e-learning business and that wants something for day-to-day management or day-to-day operations of the business, one key time grain or time granularity for them is going to be like a weekly granularity so that they can plan on a week by week basis, right? So the following metrics that we computed are going to be based on week comparison so that they can manage their day-to-day, weekly. They can find out what are the activities they are going to do for the week. Which courses should they push, which courses should they advertise on their social media platforms, should they do some discounts this week and stuff like that. So we are looking at first versus previous week. So these are all versus previous week metrics. Okay, so how many people signed up this week? But let's see if, or let's compare that to the number of people that signed up in the previous week and see if we are improving or not. So enrollment versus previous week is the first metric. Then we also are looking at completion versus previous week, which is basically how many people completed the course. I mean, how many people completed a course this week versus the previous week. That will let us know if people are still working or not. The third one is going to be active learners. So people who are actively learning. So how many people are actively learning on the platform right now, or how many people signed in this week to actually learn something on the platform. It can help us to find out if there are one or two issues that we need to quickly address, right? So active learners, obviously, also versus previous week. Okay. Now with this, we also are going to be able to now flesh out or get into more details from these three items. We can now show them by courses, right? So now we're going to show enrollments by course. So each of them now we can show their by course numbers. Then we are going to show completion by course. And then finally, we are going to show active learners by course. As you can see, if you have the active learners by course, you can know which courses are people currently taking on the platform, right? So that's active learners by course. Okay, so these are our targets. This is what we covered. Hopefully, I'll be able to cover all of this in the next 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 1 hour. Hopefully. Okay, so all right, so now let's go to Power BI and build the data model. All right, so any questions so far, please? If you have any questions so far, please kindly indicate. Any questions? Okay. In the absence of questions, I will continue. All right, so first things first, let's bring in the data. Excel workbook, I think it's on my desktop. It's called E-Learning Data. And then we're bringing in courses, enrollments, quiz detailed, quiz summary, quiz dimension, and users. So transform data to go into Power Query. All right, so just to confirm that everything is good and fine, the first thing we want to do is our grain of reporting is going to be at a weekly level, right? And what makes up weeks really are days. So we don't really care about, the timing of each of these things. Therefore, everywhere that we have dates, we are going to be converting those columns into, where we have date time columns, we'll be converting them into into dates only, right? And to do that correctly, it's possible that you could go to do this and change this to dates, and you have something, it changes to dates. But really, if you really want to be comfortable, you want to be clear of errors when you are converting a date time column to a date column, the right way, the safe way for you to do this is to right click on the date time column, go to transform and select date only. That's the best, right? You are going to be sure that you will not have errors when you do this. Okay, so now let me go to quiz dimension. We don't have any dates here. Everything looks fine, look good. Let's go to quiz summary. We'll have some dates, so we're going to apply the same logic. You right click on the date completed, go to transform and date only. Of course, maybe right. So I think that's this. That's that for this one. So go to the quiz detailed. Is there a date on quiz detailed? No. Everything here also looks good. Now the main fact table really is the enrollment table, and we have a couple of dates there. So I will be selecting each of the dates simultaneously. The items dot created at, then what started at, then the activated at, we're unsure of its usefulness. It's a little bit confusing. So we're going to remove this column for now since we don't need it. Then updated at is the last one. If you have an idea what that could be speaking to, you can please give us your suggestion of what you think it is. Right. So if you know what it is, then it can help us know some other important things or some other useful metrics that we can come up with. So right click now that I have selected all the dates column that I want to transform. I will go to the transform option and I'm going to select dates only. Then they are good. And finally, this created at, I don't need it. Whatever I don't need, I don't bring, right? Whatever you don't need, bring it. Okay. Now, talking about deleting columns. Talking about deleting columns also. One method I recommend when you want to delete columns is, rather than using your delete button on your keyboard. So if I delete on my keyboard right now, you see I have removed that column, and I have my step here for removed columns, right? My remove column step. Now, if it happens that maybe I removed the wrong column and I want to make a change, right? It's not going to be very easy for me to make that change this way. Okay, so I don't recommend this option for removing columns. Not like anything is wrong with it, but I have something I recommend better. Now, if you use the other option, which is right click and remove, you are still within the same circle. Or if you select the column and you go to use the remove column option here, you are still talking about the same thing. So what I recommend you use instead is use your choose columns option, and then just go to untick the one you don't want, which is the activated at, and click OK. So what this means is, if you delete your columns this way, then it is easy for you to amend it in a much more user-friendly manner. So maybe I was not supposed to delete activated at, I probably should have deleted started at, just for example, and I want to make that change. Using the method I just showed now, I can easily go to the step, right click on the step, and I'm going to edit the settings. That's edit the step, right? Then I can correct whatever mistake I made. If I chose the wrong one, I'll be able to correct that. Okay, so one thing you may want to think about as far as deleting columns in your query is concerned. All right, now let's go to courses. Courses, do we have anything? Yeah, so I think this also looks good. Then I'm going to simply close and apply. then I can tell you about the next recommendation I have. All right, so everything loads clean and fine. So my second recommendation has to do with your data model, right? So ideally, what you probably want to use on your Power BI, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not good. So that's why I typically just leave the setting the way it is if I go to my file and I go to option and settings and I go to options, I'm looking for an option that automatically detects relationships. I'm not sure where it is, but it's somewhere. Background, parallel, cache. No, it's not here. It's probably going to be on where? Maybe report settings, not here. Maybe the other one, report settings. Okay. Export filtering, cross report, personalize. Okay, it's not in any of these places, but I know it's somewhere on the report settings that allows the relationship to, I think it's somewhere. I probably have not sat down to look for it, right? So the text column headers, no. Allow data previews, no. Auto time intelligence, that's one other thing you want to remove anyway. Here, so where could it be? Direct query, housekeeping, security, privacy, regional setting, updates. It shouldn't be usage data diagnostic preview features, coverage report settings. Display smart guide suggests a visual accessibility, page alignment. It's not here. Maybe it's data load here. Yeah. All right. So under data load for the current file, you are going to see where you have relationships and you are going to see auto detect new relationships after data is loaded, and also this import relationship from data sources. So this setting is a setting that you may want to remove so that relationships are not automatically detected. However, I typically just leave it the way it is like this because there are sometimes that I need to use it. Okay. However, if I realize that I will be loading multiple tables at the same time, just the way I've done now, several tables at the same time, you have like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 tables that you are loading at the same time. You don't want auto relationships to happen because it's going to probably generate some things that you don't like. Okay. However, if you don't want auto relationships to happen, then you can remove it from that setting. But like I said, I typically just leave it the way it is so that I can delete all my relationships by myself. So the moment I load all this, what I'm going to do is go to my modeling tab and I'm going to go to manage relationships. Then I'm going to select all of the relationships, Control A. No, I don't want to select that one. So Control A to select all the relationships at once, and I'm going to delete them and delete. Okay. This way, I ensure that every relate has been properly thought through, not a Power BI assisted relationship where some things can be wrong sometimes. And when things are wrong, you don't want to spend hours troubleshooting what is not wrong. Okay, what do I mean by that? Sometimes you are probably spending hours or days troubleshooting where there is no problem. So you are troubleshooting where there is no problem at all. And that's possible simply because of a wrong relationship in your model. You compute a metric, you expect to see 60, and you are seeing 200. And then you start troubleshooting without knowing that you are seeing 200 because there is a wrong relationship somewhere, right? So you want to manage your relationships by yourself. So I'm going to go to my model view right now. And I think before I do that, let me create our date table first. So our date table that we created, it's a special one because we were introducing two new fields into the date table that will allow us to easily do week on week comparison. Okay, so on my modeling tab still, creating my new table, And we're going to call this table our calendar table. So this is calendar. And with this calendar table, I have the code somewhere as a text file. I'll just copy Control A, Control C, and I guess I have to do like this, right? Okay, now it looks very funny because of the way I have copied it. So I'll try to make it look more sensible. All right. So the two additions that we have added to our dates table to make it more sensible, to make it easier for us to do week on week comparisons are number one. So your typical date table is going to have years, it's going to have months, it's going to have month number, but to allow for ease of week on week comparison, we have introduced um, two new columns. One of them is a column that says it's current week, and the other one is a column that says it's previous week, right? Now, this is necessary because the goal of the report, one more time, is to create something that shows a weekly comparison between a current week and a previous week. So if we have those two columns on our calendar table, it makes our job way easier, and this doesn't necessarily have negative impact on performance of your Power BI model, right? So now the logic that we have used here, ideally, if we were connected to a live data set for the is current week, the logic is going to be that, okay, I want to know if we are in the current week. I want to know if this date, because when you generate your calendar table, let me just commit this so that we're going to go to the data view and look at the date, right? So this is a calendar table right now. I should mark as dates table so that I would be compliant. Okay, now the logic behind using the is current week and the is previous week is what I'm about to explain right now. If we were connected to a live data set, okay, from this our dates table that starts from 1st of January 2020, somewhere within this dates table, we are going to be having today's dates, right? That is assuming we connected to a live data set. Somewhere along the line on the table, we will have today's dates there. Okay, now if we have today's dates somewhere on the table, we will want to capture all the dates that fall in the same week of today. That's how you know if it's current week. So today, for example, is 1st of May. So 1st of May, 2nd, 4th, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th of May, they should all fall, or they should all carry through under a column that we're going to call is current week, right? All data that belong to this week. So ideally, if we were using a live data set, what we would be doing is for the is current week column, we should be using, hey, can you tell me the week number of today? So instead of these hard-coded dates that we have here, which is 8th of October 2022, which happens to be like the last sensible date in this data set, we're just hard-coding that one there. Instead of using these hard-coded dates this way, we would be using the function of today like this. So this is what we would have written like this. We would have written something like, okay, it's current week. I want to find out if it's current week, if a date is inside the current week. So we'll say, okay, what is the week number of today? So we're saying, can you give me the week number of today and check if it is exactly the same thing? Okay. Yeah, if it's exactly the same thing as the week number of whatever date it is, okay, then you were having a true or a false. Right? So what do I mean by that? So let's go to whiteboard. So today is 1st of May, sorry, day month here, 1st of May 23. Okay, you have week number here. The week number is obviously going to be week something. So let's say this is week 22 of the year, for example. You have 2nd of May, because it's the same week, it's also going to be week 22. You have a 3rd of May, it's also going to be week 22, right? Now, somewhere along the line, somewhere down along the line, somewhere, um, you are going to have a 6th of June 2023, and that's probably like week 36, just an example, right? Now, the logic of this code is, can you check the week number of today and see if it is the same thing as the week number of the date? So technically speaking, this is the week number of the dates, okay? And you're already in your formula calculating the week number of today. So you are checking. The week number of today obviously is 22 somewhere, okay? So you are checking. Is this equals to this? Here you say true, because it is. Is this equals to this? Yes, it is true. As long as that's the week number for that week. So is this true? 22. Now this is going to be what? This is going to be false, because 36 is not equal to 22. So that's the logic we are implementing here. Ideally, if we were connected to a live data set, we'll be writing something like this to say, can you check if the week number of today is the same thing as the week number of a current date that you are looking at, right? So for each date you are checking, each date you are checking, is the date, week number of that date the same as the week number of today? That's what we are trying to do here, okay? So because this is not a live data set, we have a hard-coded stop somewhere. We are hard-coding it right here so that we'll be able to complete our task, okay? So that's just what this code is about, and that gives us the true and false that indicate when a date falls in the current week. Now, the other part is when a date falls in the previous week. And the logic is a little bit similar to that, except that we have to, we need to apply some tactics, or we need to apply some modifications to what this formula is saying, okay? So, for example, still using this our small example here, I should probably recreate it in a way. So, if you are thinking about it, what that means is you have, let's say, 28th of April here, 29th of April here, 30th of April here, then you have 1st of May, 2nd of May, 3rd of May, and so on and so forth, so 4th of May. Okay, so if you have it like this, and we're assuming that this is week, let's say this is week 21, this is week 21, this is week 21, and this week now, current week, is week 22, week 22, week 22, and week 22, like this, right? So this is our week number. Now, we want to check for is current week. Obviously, it's current week. Current week is 22. So current week, this is going to be false, false, false. This is going to be true, 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 true. Because why? 21 is not 22. 22 is 22. So only 22 is going to be true, right? Now, how do we check for previous week? Problem. How do we check for previous week? So to check for previous week obviously is supposed to be 21, right? The week that happens to be week 21 is one that is going to be previous week, if current week is 22. So the logic that we have applied here is the same thing, but with a slight modification. And the modification is like this. Just like we did here, what is the week number of today's date? So in this case, we're assuming today's date is 8th of October 2022. So check if the week number of today's date, which obviously in our small example is week 22, right? Check if it's the same thing as the week number of a current date. If you do that, the way it is, you are going to repeat this guy here. You have a repeat of this. Why are you going to have a repeat of this? You have a repeat of this because your logic is to check if the week number is the same as the week number of today's date. Guess what the week number of today's date is? 22. So you are checking 21 against 22, you get a false, you get a false, you get a false. 22 against 22, you get a true, you get a true, you get a true, you get a true. So instead of using it exactly the same way like that, what we'll be doing is, hey, check the week number of today's date, which is 22. Can you check if it's the same thing as the week number of the current dates plus 1? Technically speaking, if you are going to do current week plus 1, what you are going to have is 22, 22, 22, 23, 23, 23, 23, right? If you are doing current week plus 1, this is what you will get. And our logic that we are implementing here is, hey, check the week number of today's date, which is what? Week 22. Check if it's the same thing as the week number of the current date plus 1. So if you do this, now you are now saying current date plus what? Current week plus 1 is what you are now checking against. So if you now do this check now, is 22 22 true? Is 22 22 true? True. Now is 23 22? No, false, false, false. So with this, you'll be able to arrive at a column that indicates if a date is in the previous week. So that's the logic that we use for that. And once we do this, we have our calendar table that will help us to easily manipulate our metrics when we start to compute metrics that are week on week basis. So our dates table is complete. Then I will go into my model view and I'm going to try to create the model, right? And I will just simply use what I can use for now. So let's say we want to start with enrollment, right? So for enrollment, I'll bring in my enrollment table and the related dimensions. So obviously enrollment goes with users, obviously, because the users have enrollment, right? Enrollment and users, they go together. Enrollment also goes with courses because users would be enrolled to a course or the other. Then obviously my dates table also comes in as well. Okay, so let me do this the way I prefer to arrange my model view. Dimensions at the top, fact table underneath. All right, so now connecting them. The users, they have user IDs. Their user IDs reflect on the enrollment table. So I'm going to connect student user ID here to item.user ID on the enrollment. Now, on the enrollment, every student is enrolled to one course or the other. So on the enrollment table, you are going to see the course that a student is enrolled to, and that is called item.course ID. You want to get the details of the course, go and check on the courses table. So I'm going to connect course ID from here to item.course ID on the enrollment table. Now for the facts table, for the days table rather, because of the things we are trying to report on. What are we trying to report on? Enrollment. How do we know if somebody has enrolled, or how do we know when somebody enrolls? So if I want to find out how many people enroll on a particular date, I will have to go to my enrollment table and I will have to use the item.created@, column. So if I want to find out how many people enrolled on 14th of January, it is going to be based on this column, item.created@. So first, I'm going to connect the dates here to the item.created@ column on the enrollment table. However, If I want to find out how many people completed a course on a particular date, how many people completed a course? Like if I say today now, how many people have completed a course today or how many people have completed a course yesterday? Then I will have to do that based on items dot completed at column. That's what I'll have to use. That's the data I'll have to reference. Therefore, I'm still going to have to connect my dates table one more time to item dot completed at column. That's the second connection, which obviously is going to be an inactive connection because you can only have one active connection between two tables, right? So every single relationships you have can only have one active connection. Now, finally, because we are also looking at active learners, so we are looking at enrollment, we are looking at completion, we are looking at active. So if I want to find out how many people are actively learning as of today or as of a particular date, I'm going to have to go to check my updated at column to find out how many people are actively learning on a particular date. Therefore, I'm still going to connect my date to my item dot where is that one? Updated at column on the enrollment table. Okay, so with this, I've got everything I need in my model as far as enrollment is concerned. The next thing is for us to start to create our metrics and our measures, right? So before I proceed, do we have any questions so far? Any questions so far? I guess not, right? Okay, so is it making sense? Is it making sense? All right, excellent. Okay, thank you. All right, so now time to start metrics computation. And first, I would like to create a column where to create a table, a blank table for my measures. And I typically do that by going to click on enter data. So enter data, I don't want to enter any data. I just want to call this my table. Let's call it DAX metrics. Then I'm going to load. So once my DAX metrics is loaded, the first thing is to create a measure inside this my table. So I'm going to right click on the table. I'm going to create a new measure. And the first measure I want to create is number of enrollments. So number of enrollments. And number of enrollments is going to be a simple count of my enrollments table and enrollment ID column, right? So this should give me the number of enrollments. Let's commit that. So once I have this, my first measure created into this my blank table, I'm going to have to go to delete that my column 1 on the blank table, which is a useless column anyway. I'm not using it for anything. So delete that column from the model, and that should now automatically force my DAX metrics to go to the first table on my data view. Okay. So now I've got my number of enrollments as a base measure. It is a base measure because I can easily use this base measure to build other chain of measures on top of this. So for example, I will still have to create enrollments for previous week. So this number of enrollments is a global generalized number of enrollments. If I want to find out, okay, how many enrollments were actually done this week and how many were done last week, right? So that's the next thing. And I'm going to right click on my DAX metrics, create a new measure. Now this new measure is going to be enrollment current week is just what I want to call it. And that's going to be a simple calculate. So we now want to do a calculation of this number of enrollments away from the global number of enrollments now, away from the generalized number of enrollments. We want to show only those ones where our calendar table is current week equal to true. Okay, so that's like number of enrollments, but filtered to only current week, not the general one anymore. Okay, now let's check what's the difference between these two things. So if I go to my home and I try to display them on a card visual just to test out my measure. So two things that you use to test out measures very often on your report are card visualization and tables. They are really, really very, very smooth and helpful when you want to confirm if your formulas are right or not. So number of enrollments shows me 1,850 enrollments, which like we have said is general, is global, entire data set. However, Control C, Control V, copy and paste. For this second one, if I only want to show the enrollments for current week only, that gives me 9 enrollments for the current week, right? Now remember that in our case, we have had codedly picked a week that is in the week of 8th of October as our current week. So from 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th of October is what we classify as our current week. So if you go to your enrollment table, so if I go to my enrollment table and I go to item.created at, and I put in a filter that is like date filters between 08, well, I guess not 08, between 02 October 2022 all the way to 08 October 2022, and you click OK right there. That should give you 9 enrollments, isn't it? 9 filtered rows. Okay, so that's the number of people that enrolled in that particular week. And that's what you see when you check your visual. Enrollment current week is 9, right? So now, let's go do enrollment previous week. And you don't have to stress yourself about that, because to calculate the enrollment of previous week, the only thing that is going to change here is this is current week has to change to week. So what you can do is just this one, Control C, and then on your metrics, create another new measure, paste that one there, and you are just changing CW to PW for previous week. And then you're also changing this is current week to is previous week. All right. So when you do this, if you check with another Control C, Control V, and you change this one to display for enrollment previous week, you are going to see that there are 10 enrollments in the previous week. Now you have your two measures that we do need to satisfy our number one, enrollment versus previous week. We've got our enrollment versus previous week. Okay, so just one more thing that we should like to do as well is to find out the percentage difference between that, right? So that we can know if we are, 2%, 3%, 10% versus the previous week. You may want to find that out for some reporting at the end of the day. So I'm going to create another new measure. Now this new measure, we are going to call it what? Enrollment week on week percentage change. Right, so enrollment week on week percentage change. And to do that, technically, you want to say enrollment in the current week minus enrollments in the previous week, which obviously is going to give us an answer of -1 as we are right now. However, we would like to divide this by the previous week number so that we can know if what? We can know if we did better than that previous week or we did worse, right? So if you do -1 divided by 10, that's going to give you -10%, I believe. So commit to that formula, change this into a percentage, and now if I decide to change this, the measure on this card visual to that one, so if I change this to enrollment week on week percentage change, that shows me a -10%. Okay, I think I need to make this like 0 decimal place or something. All right, so that's a -10%, and I think we've been able to successfully create measure number 1. Right, so measure number 2 is going to be based on completion. I mean, the first set of measures, we got that. Now we're going to create the second set of measures on completion. One other thing that we can do about this to keep the house very tidy is, I don't know if this is updated here already. I doubt it. So if you go into the model view, I can basically select this first measure, enrollment current week, and then I will go into the display folder box and I'm going to type something like enrollments, right? I don't know the right spelling for this. Sometimes enrollments, and then you see there's probably no right spelling, enrollments. Okay, so I want it to be displayed in that folder. I will now drag these guys and put also in the folder as well. Okay, so if I go back to my report view, the house is clean and the house is tidy. Okay, now we're going to create measures for completion, and it will mostly be the same thing, right? Except for some slight changes. So first, I'm going to create a new measure, and the first thing I want to create now is number of completion. Number of completion. So if you remember, every enrollment has status. Every enrollment has status. I'm looking for the best way to actually do this, because what we calculated as number of enrollments in the first instance, our number of enrollments measured in the first instance, is just a very simple count of enrollment IDs. Right, so this is a count of enrollment IDs, and this count of enrollment IDs is going to be based on the normal active relationship that we have between our dates and our enrollment, and the normal active relationship is based on the enrollment date. But if I want to do a counting that is not based on the enrollment date, but is rather based on the completion date, I'm going to have to do it a little bit differently. So therefore, I'm going to do a new measure, and this measure, we are calling it number of completion. And the number of completion technically also remains the same thing, which is to count the enrollment table, go count the enrollment ID column. However, the problem with this currently is when you do this count like this, it is going to be executed. If you are using it against anything dates, it's going to be executed against the created at date, because the created at date we saw earlier is the default is the active relationship between our date table and the enrollment table. But we don't want to use that. We do have an inactive relationship anyway between completion and date. So we have to ask this our counting to be done based on a different date. So in order to modify this formula not to use the default settings, we are going to have to say, yeah, I want to do that count, but guess what? Don't do the count just like that. I want to modify how the count is going to be done. And that's when we use calculate function. So we're saying, okay, calculate the count of the enrollment IDs, comma, but sir, kindly use the relationship between the calendar dates and the enrollment completed at date. Close the bracket and close the bracket. So this is going to give us our number of completion. No, not necessarily number of completion. I'm going to say, what should I call this now? This is going to be counting the enrollment ID. So let me change this measure from number of enrollments per or as per completion dates, just for description's sake. All right. So if you think about it, the total number of enrollments is 1,850. This other one too is going to be what? Let me test your DAX knowledge a little bit. Before I show it, before I display it, okay, I want to test your DAX knowledge. All right. So the second one that I've created now, what do you think? What value do you think is going to give to us? Number of enrollments based on the completion dates. What value do you think it will give to us? Sorry, I'm testing you. I'm putting you on the hotspot. Okay. Good thing with DAX is you have to think about it and anticipate your answer. So what do you guys think the answer is going to be before I display it? Let me see who is going to get it right. I know you are trying it from your side, so it's probably not going to be valid. All right, so let me put the question to you. Do you think the answer is going to be 1,850? Do you think it's going to be 1,850? Yes or no? No response. Okay. Taiwo says, I don't know. Okay. All right, so if I check this, you see, it's also going to be 1,850. Is anybody confused by this answer? If you are confused by this answer, please just type C. Don't type confused, just type C. Just type C. So nobody's confused, right? So you all understand it. You know why it's 1,850. Okay, so now C. Okay, who else has a C? Ibrahim C. All right. Okay, so let's explain it. Let me explain it. So this is what's happening. Yes, I have said count the enrollment IDs, but use a different relationship. You see, this part where I'm saying you should use a different relationship is technically not relevant right now. Technically, it's not relevant right now until I try to put in some kind of dates. So, for example, the truth of the matter is, if you count the enrollment IDs, regardless of what you are using, the enrollment IDs is 1,850 all day. Okay. However, if you now decide to show the enrollment by something, so for example, let's say I pull up a table visualization like this. So on this table visualization, let's say I still go and put in the number of enrollments, right? As you can see, the number of enrollments is still 1,850, right? 1,850. However, by the time I decide to show this 1,850 by something, maybe by course, items name, right? That's the course name. So if I decide to show it by courses now, you can see that it now easily gives me a different counting for each course. You can see it gives me a different count for each course. That simply means that if I do a count of the enrollment IDs any day, anytime, it will always be 1,850. However, when I now decide to show it by something, that is when you should expect to see the change. That's when it will now break it down by that particular thing that you are displaying it by, right? Now, coming back to these two 1,050 that are both the same thing at the moment. This number of enrollment is 1,850. This one is 1,850. How you are going to find the difference is when you decide to show it by a date field. So if I go to pick what? A metrics table right now, pick a metrics table this way, and then on the metrics table, I'm going to put in the number of enrollments. As you would expect, it is 1,850. However, if I decide to show or display it by year and month, right? So let's add year and let's also add month to it. Month, I want it to be on rows as well. Then expand the table. Okay, so what you can see now is the 1,850 have been broken down by years and months. Technically speaking, okay, there is one more thing I need to do to my calendar. I have to arrange it very well. So my calendar table, I need to say the month should be sorted by the month number. Okay, all right. Now, I am currently displaying my number of enrollments by year and month. And you can simply see that in the month of January 2020, there were 117 enrollments, right? Now, the 1,850 is now broken down by month, okay? The second measure, number of enrollments per completion date. This second measure right now is going to be using a different type of dates to do its own counting. Okay, I'll give you a clearer example for you to understand this once I display this answer. So 117 people actually enrolled in the month of January, but how many people completed their courses in the month of January? Well, to know the people that completed in the month of January, I have to be using the counting based on the completion dates. If the completion date is not in January 2020, then you did not complete in January 2020, right? That's where the use relationship becomes active. That is where it becomes useful. All right, so this is not displaying expectation. So if you have something like this, really, it could mean one thing. First of all, I need to go and check my enrollment, items of completed acts. So I say use relation between calendar date and item dot completed acts. So let's go and check our items dot completed acts column. On the enrollment, item dot completed acts, as you can see, this column is not a date column, right? It's It's not a date column. It is a text column. Okay. So another good lesson. Anytime you are creating a report, especially reports that have to do with dates, when you use a measure and you display the measure against some dates and it doesn't give you answers for those dates, that means your dates column is most likely not a date. That's your first thing you want to troubleshoot. Your date column is most likely not a date. So I'm going to go back to my Power Query. Let's go to the enrollment table and let's go to the completed at column, item.completed at. Yep, you see I've left it as text. I need to change it first to date time because that's what you have in the column originally. Then right click and then change it back to transform and say date only. Okay, let's close and apply and let's see what's going to happen. Great. So now you will see that the number of completion is still 1,850 because it's always be 1,850 anyway, because what I was doing in that place is I was counting the number of enrollments and the number of enrollments is 1,850. But if I put that count now against the completion date, date by date, then I'm going to see that, okay, in January 2020, 15 people completed. In February, it was 2 completion. In March, it was 6 completion, and so on and so forth. All right. So what you have to do is very simple. Go to Foresight BI YouTube channel, check the playlist. You are going to see a DAX course playlist. Make it your friend. Watch it like every week, right? Why do you have to watch it like every week? Because you cannot learn DAX once. You can't learn DAX once. It's a language. If you want to learn any language, then you have to learn it repeatedly for you to master it, for you to be fluent with it, right? So check out the playlist DAX course from Foresight BI YouTube channel. Okay, so that's my number of enrollments per completion date. Now, with this number of enrollments per completion date, I will now start to build on it, just like we built on enrollment. So if I want to calculate now, how many people completed this week, how many people completed last week, and so on and so forth, I should be able to do all those, right? However, before I even continue to do that, if you think about what I'm doing right now, I am currently counting all the enrollment IDs. But the truth is, am I supposed to be counting all the enrollment IDs? Technically, I should not be counting all the enrollment IDs because what I need to count is only the enrollments that have been completed. You see, instead of counting all the enrollment IDs, which is 1,850, I actually am supposed to count only the enrollments that have true here. If you check here and you see true, then that's the one you need to count, which actually is 460, right? Not 1,850. Okay. Therefore, I am going to modify this my formula. Instead of counting the enrollment IDs, I have to do a count that excludes the false or a count that includes only the true. So I will be changing my formula from count enrollment IDs. Taiwo says, how come the blank rows are not showing null? Right, so null doesn't show when you load your data. Null is just a description in Power Query that shows that there is empty value. But when you load it, null doesn't show when you load. Right, it's just the blank. Okay, so now I want to change my measure from counting the enrollment IDs to a different type of counting that will allow me to exclude some things. So instead of count, I will be using count X. Okay, I'm going to be using count X. Now, for my count X, I have to specify the table I want to count from. Ideally, I should say I want to count from the enrollment table. But if I do this, I'll be counting from the entire table. So I don't want to count from the entire table. I want to count from a filter of this table. Therefore, we've got to filter this table first. Okay, so let's filter this table. Let's filter this table and say we want to filter this table to when the enrollment completion or something complete item does completed shows a true. Okay, this is what we want to do. Now, if you help me to filter this enrollment table to when the completion is equal to true, if you are able to help me to do this, then you can go ahead to count the enrollment ID for me, right? Enrollment, where are you? Enrollment ID. Okay, that's the logic. Don't worry, I'm going to share this right with you in the chat just in case you want to copy it and you want to pick it up. So you will see that my completion is now what? 460, and everything has adjusted normally. So this is my number of enrollments, really, in reality. Sorry, number of completion. I think I am safe to actually change this to number of completion instead, right? So let's just change to number of completion. All right, so let me copy this, Control C. I'll put it in the chat for you if you want to pick it up. Okay, so now based on this, my number of completion, it serves as a base for me. I can easily now create completion current week, completion previous week. And you know how you do that? Right click, new measure. We're going to say completion in the current week, completion CW, and that's going to be equal to calculate our number of completion, comma, and we want to say that for the current week, it has to be when the calendar is current week is a true, right? Okay, and then I'm going to copy this, Control C, create another new measure right there, and this one is going to be completion previous week, and all I will be changing is I'll be changing this current week to his previous week. All right, so what else? Then we have to do the week on week change. So another new measure, we are going to do the week on week change. So this is going to be completion week on week percentage change. And remember how we did that. For the week on week percentage change, we are going to say that can you do completion current week minus completion previous week. Okay, now when you get this number out, when you get out this completion current week minus completion previous week, when you give me that number, please divide it. Let's go and compare it with the previous week one so we know if we are progressing or not. So divide it by completion in the previous week and make that a percentage and make it a 1 decimal place. All right, so let's check if all those things actually worked out. I'll be using this card to test it out. So let's start with completion current week, to completion. How about completion previous week? 3 completion. What is the percentage change? 1 over 3 is what? 33%. I thought I made this 0 decimal place. 0. Okay, so that's 33% difference. And yeah, so now to keep the house tidy, one more time, go to your model view I'm going to start with which one? Completion. Where's my completion measure? So this is my completion measure right here. I'm going to say, hey, Mr. Completion, I want you to display in a folder called completion. Enter. Okay, and then you other guys, I need you also to be in that folder. So completion previous week in the folder, completion current week in the folder, completion week on week change in the folder. All right, so house is tidy. House is tidy, looks good. Go back to my reports. I've got my metrics, right? Number two, completed, completion. Okay, any questions so far? Any questions so far? How many hours have we done? We've done about an hour and 30 minutes. So let's take like a 10 minutes break. 10 minutes break. If you have questions, you can drop them in the chat. I'm going to attend to it, right? So 10 minutes break. Let's make that 11. All right, so welcome back, everyone. We have one more metric to compute, and that is going to be based on the active learners. And to know who an active learner is, an active learner is simply someone who's got an update at a particular period of time, right? So if you go to if you come to today, for example, and you have an update, that means you've signed into your course today. That's what makes you to count as an active learner for today. So, and it's very simple because we have our dates field that we can use to easily identify that on our enrollment table. We do have that column there that is called what? That column that is called updated ads, and we have used that updated ads column to create a relationship back to our calendar table, right? So you can see that right here, updated ads connected to our dates in our calendar table. So whenever we are doing a reporting and we are picking a date and we are using the relationship between this, then it will know that please use this updated ads to represent our date. That's technically what it means. So we'll be doing something similar to what we have seen before. If I go to my metrics and I create a new measure, what I want to do now is to show the number of enrollments based on what? Updated ads. So we're going to call this active learners. Okay, so our active learners is going to be as usual. We're going to count the enrollment table. So let's count the enrollment table and let's count for the enrollment IDs. Okay, we want to count this. But we know if we count that just like that, it's going to give us 1,850. Yes, we know that's what we're going to have. But if we now start to show it against the dates like this, then it will break down the 1,850 one by one. However, the default of this breakdown is typically by the created at column, but we don't want that to be based on the created at date. We want it to be based on the updated at date. That is why we will not leave this formula the way it is. We are going to wrap it with a calculate. So we are going to say we want to calculate this number, but we like to use a different date. So use the relationship between our calendar dates and the enrollment updated at dates. That's what we want to do. Close the bracket where necessary. Okay. So once we have this, we have our active learners. We have the base for our active learners. We are going to build on this base by creating measures for active learners in the current week versus active learners in the previous week. So this is going to be active learners current week, and this is going to be for us to do a calculation of the active learners, and we are going to say that we only want to consider those ones where our calendar is current week is equal to true. All right, so we do this, and then we are simply going to copy this same formula because we need to use something similar for enrollment in the previous week by changing just one column. So I'm going to copy this one with Ctrl C, go to my metrics, create another new measure. Now this new measure is going to be active learners PW for previous week. The same thing, except instead of his current week, we're using his previous week, right? And obviously, we will also be showing the week on week differences. So another new measure to show active learners week on week. So active learners week on week percentage change. And this is going to be our active learners minus, sorry, our active learners current week minus the active learners in the previous week. We want to compare that growth or the growth. We want to compare it by the active learners in the previous week. Okay, commit the measure, make it a percentage, and make it 0 decimal place. All right, so I think we've got everything for active learners. Obviously, we have to test it out just to be sure, we want to be sure that the dates are working. Remember, if we did not test out this completion, for example, we would not have found out that the completion completed art date had an issue, which we had to go back to Power Query to correct. So I'm going to put in active learners current week. All right, of course, you see it's not going to show anything, right? It's not going to show anything because the current week as per us is in 2022, if you remember, around October, right? You can see October 2022. That's where we had the current week, okay? And the previous week, obviously, right? Everything works, no problems, excellent. Okay, so I think we've got all our metrics right. And this is probably around, I think we've already exceeded where we stopped the last time that was not captured in the recording. So we are doing well as far as time is concerned. So what we are going to do next is to show an idea of what you can do, probably one or two other measures. But I think before we do one or two other measures, we still need to do what? We still have to clean the house. So let's go create a folder, display folder for this. Instead of this, we're going to call it active. Yeah, so active learners. So this is going to be active learners. So on the active learners, we have to bring in anything active learner into that folder. So take them all into the folder. Right, so house is clean. Go back to the report and then try to create some reports. So ideas I was providing to you the last time is the following. Number one, we are going to create our three main metrics cards at the top. Remember that the goal again is to show weekly, right? Enrollment, completion, and active learner. So we're going to put that here. You have to find a way to design your report and make it have your own handwriting. I'm only giving you ideas, so nothing really sophisticated right now. So by putting a card visual here, so on this card visual, I'm going to be putting my enrollment. So if I go to enrollment, I'm going to show enrollment current week. Okay, and what can I do about this? Probably rename it, or probably want to rename this properly, enrollments. There's even no need for current week because the users of the dashboard are aware that this dashboard is a weekly dashboard, right? But what we can do is we can add in a text box here, and this text box is going to put in something like platform performance overview. Okay, then week on week, right? I'm very terrible with sentences, so you're going to manage what I have right now. So that's what we have as your header: platform performance overview week on week. So everybody knows that anything you see here is a week-on-week thing. So we show the enrollments, and after showing the enrollments, obviously we now somehow want to show if this is better than last week or worse. And the way to show if it is better than last week or worse actually is to use the week-on-week percentage change. So we have already calculated a week-on-week percentage change somewhere here, right? So a smart way to implement this is, if I select the card visual, I can format it. I can format this card visual and allow a title to be there. Okay. Now on the title, I'm going to put something like minus 10% change versus previous week. All right. So minus 10% change versus previous week. Let's centralize it. Okay. Now the difference here, the difference of what I have here is that I have hard coded the minus 10%, and I don't want to hard code the minus 10%. I want it to be based on the calculation, because by the time next week comes now, obviously, this figure is going to change to a different figure. So you cannot hard code this value. What you can do instead is to drive the title from the calculation of our week-on-week change. All right. So, and how we can actually do that is this. So let me start by changing this our title a little bit so that you will have an idea of what I'm trying to show. So this minus 10% change, right? I will also like to put a red icon there to show that it is negative, right? So smart way to do that also is with your Windows key on your keyboard and the full stop on your keyboard, it's going to display emojis like this. And good thing I have the red one very close by. You may have to scroll down to find yours. You may have to go to different tabs, but I have one of my most recent ones here, which is a red one. So I'm going to use that red circle right there. So I will be trying to display something like this, right? I'm trying to display something like this, okay? But I want it to be automated. I want it to drive from my week-on-week formula change. So to make it drive for my week-on-week formula change, I have to create, because a title has to be a text anyway. The title of anything should be a text. So I need to convert this my week-on-week change. I have to convert it to a text somehow. And in the text, I also need to include, because if you look at this value, this measure ordinarily just shows what? Minus 10%. That's what it shows. It just shows minus 10%. But I needed to carry this inscription, right? So I have to convert it into a text that will carry that inscription. And to do that, I'm going to right click. I'm going to try to create a new measure. So maybe just right click on any of these measures here and create a new one. So new measure. Now this measure, I'm going to call it maybe enrollment title, just for identification's sake. Now for this title, I want to take it step by step. Okay, so first I'll create a variable so that it can be a step-by-step process. Now this variable, I will start by showing the week-on-week change. And the week-on-week change, we have already calculated it. It's called enrollment week-on-week percentage change. All right. Now, another variable that I should create now. Let's say now I'm going to create starting text. Starting text. Okay. Now the starting text is supposed to be something like either I do Windows full stop. It can either be a red or it can be a blue. I don't know. It can be a red or it can be a blue. What is going to make it to be a red is that if the enrollment week on week change is less than 0. If it is less than 0, that means it is negative, right? If that is the case, then this thing is going to be in double quotes. I will do my Windows full stop again. I'm going to put that red there. Okay, right? In fact, if it is less than 0, then the starting text is going to be like this red should now come with change versus, right, and a space. It's going to be like this. Okay, so if the enrollment is less than 0, the starting text is going to be red icon change versus sorry, this is not now. Okay, so I think I should just put only this part, only the icon, right? If I'm following what I have here, so the icon first, then the 10%, and then the text. All right, so the icon, the 10%, and the text. Okay, I think that's what I need to do. Okay, so if that is the case, then I will be saying if the enrollment is less than 0, give me the red icon. Otherwise, Windows and full stop, give me the green icon. It has to be in double quote because it is a text. Come on. Okay. So that's my starting text, isn't it? So starting text, red icon or green icon, depending on the percentage change. Then another variable, this is going to be my ending text. My ending text. So my ending text is going to be something called, what should I be? That should be percentage. No, maybe not percentage. That's going to be something like in double quotes, change versus previous week. All right, something like this. Okay, now my output should be the starting text, which is what? Red icon or green icon. And the week on week change, which is what? Minus 2%, 10%, 15%, 30%, 33%, you know, red icon, percentage change, and my ending text. Okay, we are still probably going to have to come to format one or two things when we are done, but let's see what this one looks like first. So let's commit this and then put it inside a card visual. So do a card visualization. Let's see what the result looks like. Enrollment title, right? So this is what it shows. It shows red icon minus 0.1 change versus previous week, which is correct, aside the fact that instead of minus 0.1, you know, this is a number. This enrollment week on week change, it is a number, okay? But we want to use it as a text. We don't want to use it as a number, so we have to show it as a text. So to make it show as a text with a percentage sign and, you know, showing accurately, we are going to say, well, let's just format this number right here. And the format we are going to apply is going to be, I think, is there a format called percentage? Not sure. Let's try it out. If it doesn't work, do another thing, right? So let's see if there's a format called percentage. I'm not sure of that, but let's see. Percentage. All right. So no such thing. So we would be using a code instead. So do hash 0.0%. All right. Hash 0.0%. Excellent. So now I've got my minus 10% change versus previous week. So this my change versus previous week looks like I need to put a space before it so that it shows very well. Excellent. Yeah, so this is what we want to show, which is what? Driven by a formula. It is automated rather than this hard-coded one that I manually typed. So therefore, I would go to my format, more options, under the title. I don't need this one that I manually typed out. I can easily clean that. That's not what I want to do. What I want to use is to drive it from a formula, and I want it to be driven from my DAX metrics. I've got something called enrollment title. Click OK, and there we go. All right. So that's for my enrollment. That's the big part. So once you have this enrollment side covered, what we can do with this is to replicate the same thing for the other two metrics, which are what and what. We've got metrics for completion and active. So I'm simply going to copy this card, Control C, Control V, so that I can change what is being displayed from enrollment current week to completion current week, right? Then I also need to create my completion title. So I'm going to copy my enrollment title, Control A, Control C. I will be creating a new measure called completion title. So paste this one, and I'll be changing this one to completion title. All right. Now this completion title, for my week on week change, I was using enrollment week on week before. I should change that to completion week on week. Okay. Now once I change that to completion week on week, I also need to change the if logic, right, to check on the completion week on week. So if the completion week on week is less than 0, then do that da 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 da. Right. So that's done. My completion title is done. So for this one, I will format it, more options on the title, go back to the FX. Instead of enrollment title, we are going to use completion title. Click OK, minus 33% as expected. Last one, Control C, Control V. This is for active learners. So let's change this from completion current week to active learners current week, 26 active learners. We also need to create the title. So let's copy this enrollment title one more time, Control A, Control C, then create a new measure. This is going to be called completion title. So this is not enrollment title anymore. This is completion title. All right. Now from this completion title, I need to change this, what I'm formatting, from enrollment week on week change to completion. No, it's active learners, isn't it? This is supposed to be active learners. Active learners. Did we have active learners week on week change? All right. So active learners week on week change. And this is also going to be active learners week on week change. I need to remember to change my title to active learners title. So active learners title. All right. So I think this is going to be it. So if I come to select my card for active learners, I can format it, more options on the title, click on the FX. I'm changing the completion title to active learners title, and OK. Something positive, 13%. So our three key metrics, that's what they are. You can space them, and then we've got this completed. Now, enrollment by course. Simply do anything. Maybe you want to use a card visual, right? You could be using a card visual for that. Just put in there on the y-axis, you want the courses, which is items.name. On the x-axis, you want the enrollment in the current week, right? So enrollment in the current week. Okay. All right. So the courses names are kind of long. They're a bit long. Let's go to our y-axis and expand the maximum width area. Okay. So that's for this. You want to format it correctly, change whatever you need to change, put off titles where you need to put off titles. Y-axis title, I don't think it should be there. X-axis title probably should not be there too. And you most likely will want to put off the X-axis and instead put on your X-axis title, right? I mean, your data labels. Okay, so put on data labels. So if you look at this now, enrollment in the current week, of course, is 9. We'll have a 10% negative change versus in the previous week, and then these are the 9. These are the courses. 6 for this, 1, 1, 1. That makes up 9. All right. So you can replicate this. Control C, Control V for the next one. Okay, I think we're going to need some more spaces on this report page. So I replicate this for this one. This is going to be completion by course. So 2 courses were completed in the current week. So we are changing the x-axis here from enrollment in the current week. We are changing that to completion in the current week, right? So 2 people completed in the current week, and the 2 people that actually completed this introduction to Power BI. Right, so I do need more space here, really, or is it possible, right? I want the names to show in full. So to generate more space, I'm going to right click and format my canvas, and I am going to go to my canvas settings, and 16:9, correct, but I want to change this to a custom so that I can increase the width and the height, right? So let's say 16:9. So 16:9, if I increase the width by 90 or by 160, so if I increase the width by 160, that would be 16 in 10 places. So 1280 plus 160. So that's 16 in 10 places. That makes what? 1440. If I do this, I would also like to increase this by 9 in 10 places as well, right? So 9 in 10 places is going to be 90, and this is going to make this one 810. Okay, so more space generated. Control C, Control V. The third one, is really up to more space. I think so. I'm not sure. So the third one, I'm changing the metric from enrollment current week to active learners current week. So active learners current week. All right, remember 26 people are currently learning, and these are the courses that people are currently learning on the platform, right? So this is just an idea of what you may be looking to create, of course, with your own design now, but this is the goal of this particular dashboard, right? That's the goal. So the goal, one more time, is to show all these guys. So if you check, we basically have been able to complete this, and this. All right. So any questions so far? Questions so far? All right. So in the absence of questions, I would like to ask you to think about the data sets and think about what other things are you expecting us to create from this, right? Remember what we have said. Every report and dashboard that you are creating is meant to target something, right? First of all, your purpose is to enable people to make smarter and better decisions, but decisions are typically made at three levels: executive, tactical, and operational. Majority of the reports that you'll be creating are going to be operational reports anyway, but that doesn't mean that from our e-learning data sets, there are no tactical reports that we can create. There are no executive reports that we can create. There are actually tactical and executive reports that we can also create from that same dashboard that will give us insights for better decision making. So think about it and let us know which other insights or which other reports are you expecting that we can create from this. All right, now you have your metrics complete, you have your model complete. You just now need to use your own handwriting to create your dashboard, given everything that we have created so far. And that's going to be like your, one of your e-learning data set projects that you have created. So in the absence of questions, if you say there is no questions, I will be stopping the recording of this session and leaving the class. All right. So, but do you have any question? One more time, please. Okay, so I'm happy that we're able to capture the full thing on the recording this time around. All right, so but now I'm expecting, more insights from you guys. More insights, more insights. What awards do you think we have to create from this? Okay, so I'll give you some ideas. All right, so Taiwo says, my question is not on this data set. Okay, so you can ask a question, even if it's not from this data set. So Taiwo says, can you talk through the number of completion DAX again? All right, so number of completion. Let's start from the data set, right? So let's start from the data for enrollment. So this is enrollment. So if I ask anyone right now to say, hey, Mr. A, how many enrollments do we have? The person comes into the data, the person checks here, and the person says we have 1,850 enrollments. Okay, I then go ahead to say, but out of 1,850 enrollments, how many completions do we have? What the person is going to do is go to our completion column, this item.completed as column, filter that column. When the person filters it, the person comes back to check how many rows were filtered. Then the person is going to say 460 rows were filtered. Therefore, for you to know how many completions we have, you have to count the enrollments after you filter the table, right? You count the enrollments after you filter the table. So if I go to my table, I think I gotta keep this one more time tidy. So I've got some measures that are slipping outside. So enrollment title, display folder, titles folder, right? So go to titles folder and let's also put this one there and completion time as well. Okay. So now, if you are checking on our completion, number of completion, we know what we want to do. We want to count the enrollment IDs. We want to count the enrollment IDs, but we can only count after we filter the table to know who completed or not, just like I showed you here, right? For us to get this 460, for you to see this 460 filtered rows, you have to filter the table first. So now the function in DAX that you can use to count a table that you have filtered, okay, is a function that is called countx. So when you use countx as a function, the first thing that countx wants from you is, all right, I know you want to count something. Which table do you want to count from? That's the first part, okay? So the first part, you say countx, and then countx says, which table do you want to count from? You say you want to count from not the full table, but rather a filter table, because what I'm counting is not the entire table, right? So count X says, which table do you want to count? You say, guess what? I'll give you a table to count, but I have to filter the table first, right? I'll give you a table to count, but hold on, I need to filter the table first. So you say, let's go and filter the enrollment table to where the completion is equals to true. Just like we did right here. You see, that's what we did here. We filter the table to where the completed equal to true. So you now go to your count X. You say count X. Count X is which table do you want to count? You say I'll give you a table, but hold on, I want to filter the table first. So you filter the table to when that is equal to true. And you now say, okay, that's the table I want you to count from. And I want you to count the enrollment IDs from the table. Right? Ideally, this is going to give us the number of completion. But because when we report this number of completion, we want to get the accurate number for each type of date we select. So if I pick January, I want to get the courses that were completed in January. Now, for me to know the courses that were completed in January, the dates I should be checking should be the completed at date. That's the date I need to be checking with, right? But because my January will come from my calendar table, or my week is coming from my calendar table, but when I want to check that's my calendar table by the week, I need to make sure that the date that the calendar table is going to be using to know which week or which not week, that date should be based on the completed at column that we have on enrollment, right? So I'll give you a simple example that I use every time, okay? So you have a business. In your business, you receive orders. You get orders. Let's say every day you get one order per day. And let's say the value of the order is $100. So you get one order per day. Technically speaking, in the month of February, if you want to account for the total number of order money that you have, let's say February has 28 days. February has 28 days. So if you check now, because you get one order per day and the order is worth $100, then at the end of the month of February, if you choose February as a month, you should be having $2,800. Right? So if you go to your report now and you calculate the amount, so you do this amount for the month of February, you should be having $2,800, okay, based on orders. But let's assume that when you get this order, you are going to ship it tomorrow. You don't ship it on the same day, you ship it the next day. Let's assume that that is your case, right? So if that is the case, therefore, if I want to calculate amount, but I want to do that calculation not based on the date it was ordered, but based on the date it was shipped, right? If that is the case, you know that if you order on the 1st, it's going to ship on the 2nd. If you order on the 28th of the month, it doesn't ship that month, it's going to ship next month, right? Therefore, you have to do a calculation that will not be using the normal order date. That calculation has to use the shipped date, so that if you pick the month of February, you should not get 2,800. Ideally, let's say February is your first business month, right? We're just assuming February is our first business month now. So if I choose the month of February and I'm calculating the total value of what I have shipped, you know it will not be 2,800 because the order of 28 will be shipped 1st of March, right? So that should be giving you something like $2,700, right? That's what you are going to have. And this is because you are using two separate dates. The 2,800 is based on the orders. Orders are ordered on the same day. So if you do 28 days in the month, you have 28 orders. But shipped are shipping the next day. So if there are 28 days in that month, that particular last day of the month doesn't ship until the next month. So if you are doing your calculation, you have to know that your calculation should be based on the ship date and something like that. So after doing this, our counting, so this counting for number of completion, I've explained the counting side of things, but because of our reporting, when we are reporting the counting based on dates, we have to make sure that our date is using the completion date. That's why we're using calculate a count that uses the completion date, right? I hope that makes sense, And remember to go through the DAX playlist. Okay, so I'm going to save this and I will be uploading this recording on the YouTube if you want to go through it. So I'm going to call it e-learning skeleton. This is just a skeleton. Okay, you're going to develop it. So what I will be expecting is when I upload this on the YouTube channel, if you have comments, you have ideas on some other metrics that we should try to create, of course, kindly shoot them in the comment section on that YouTube channel. And when we compile a good number of them, we'll come back to do another session where we will be computing the metrics that will be required to complete those tasks, right? So I think I was also mentioning that some ideas of some other things that can also be created are things like, if you are looking at creating some other reports, maybe at the tactical level, for example, you may want to find out what is the average completion time per course. Okay, so average completion time per course. You may also be looking at getting or looking at the trends of enrollment and completion. So enrollment versus completion. But this time around, you are looking at the trends. You're looking at the trend. And what you'll be looking at for typically is when you have a high number of enrollments, you are expecting that down the line. So if you have a high number of enrollments in February, you want to see more completion maybe in March or April, something like that. So if you see a gap, 80 people enrolled January and the completion as of February remains somehow the same thing, or it's even reducing, there's something is wrong somewhere. Those people that enrolled, what happened to them and stuff like that. So you're looking at the enrollment versus completion trend. You may also, try to figure out how your platform is doing, right? Do people really like your platform or not? One metric that can show you if people like your platform or not can be students. Check the number of students that have more than one course. So students with more than one course, right? So more than one course. Because if on your platform there is only one course that people sign up for, then maybe there's probably one or two issues with the platform there. So let's look at the rate of students that have more than one course. These are some ideas. I think, from these ideas, I'll probably compute the one that requires computation. So let's just look at these two measures very quickly, and then we're going to run up from there, right? So let's create these two measures as addition. So average completion time. So for us to know what the average completion time is, let me see that we have not exceeded 3 hours, right? Okay, so we've got about 30 minutes. So now average completion time is going to be based on a couple of things. First of all, the completion should be true. The completion should be true. That's the first thing. So you see, we are doing a filter. Let the completion be true. Now, if the completion is true, then we want to be able to get the average number when we subtract completed acts from, or the other way, when we subtract started acts from completed acts, right? This is going to give us like a number of days now, because these are self-paced learning platforms, self-paced. You do 1 hour today, you come back tomorrow, there are a lot of activities for you to do in the day. So that's going to be like when you complete minus when you started. Everybody have their own. So this enrollment is done in 3 days, September 29th to October 4, maybe 6 days or thereabouts. This one from August 24 to August 30, another 6 days. This from August 20 to August 31, that's like 11 days. So at the end of the day, we check the average of everybody like that. So to achieve something like this, you want to do something like create a new measure. Obviously, from what you have seen so far, you probably have an idea. So we're going to call this average completion time. So basically, we are going to use an average X, right? So you see there's average and there's average X. So we'll be using average X because average X is asking us for a table, and like we did the other time, I'm going to say average X, you want a table, right? I'm going to give you a table, but please, I want to filter the table first. So you do filter the enrollments table to where the enrollment completed is equals to true. Great. Yeah. So average X says, give me a table. You say, okay, that's the table I want, a filter table, comma. Now, average X says, what average do you want me to calculate for you? We are going to say, okay, the average I want to calculate for me is, you will help me to go and minus, you help me to do my completed arts. So you do enrollment completed arts, where's completed arts? Okay, and you minus that from enrollment enrollment started arts. Do this for me. Okay, that's what I want to find the average of. So now we can go to close our brackets. Okay, but one thing you have to put in mind is this. One thing you have to put in mind is this. Let's say that we were using a calculated column to do that minus minus. So if I go to my enrollments now, for example, and I just decide to create a new column like this, new column, and I say duration, right? I say course duration, for example, for those who have completed. And I'm doing that simple minus, which is completed arts minus started arts. If I do this, you can see that it's possible that this will be displayed as a date, right? Because I'm doing date minus date. You can have this possibility. So to make sure that it is displaying a number, what we can do is say use integer int, you now open brackets. Okay, that's int, open brackets, then close bracket like this, right? It will display as a number. If you also like, you may also decide to use something called date diff, I think. Date diff, which is date difference. Date difference. So date 1, let's say date 1 is the started at, and comma, let's say date 2 is the completed at, then the interval, right? That also works. Completion time, could have used any of those two things if we liked. Maybe I'm going to change this and I'm going to use the date div, date difference between the started at and the completion at, give me days, close bracket. Right, so this is going to give me my average completion time. Okay, so let's say you try to show this on a table, for example. So if you pull up a table visual where you are trying to display by course, you want to show the average completion time. All right, so this is what you get. Okay, of course, there are probably some other factors that you have to bring into it, like maybe what's the duration of the course. For example, this cleaning dirty data samples, right? If we go to bring the duration of the course, so go and bring duration, course duration in hours, you can see that this guy is a 1 hour course anyway. So on the average, when people start, they complete it after 2 days. This guy is a 5 hours course, and people complete it in 257 days. They just sign up. The course is so long that if they start today, they probably forget it and they get busy with life. Maybe they get disturbed at work to do some Power BI tasks. They remember the course, they come back to it, right? But all in all, it is really very, very clear that the completion time is really, really very, very long. So an action needs to be taken to address how, you know, to motivate learners to complete their courses. This is more like people signing up and abandoning their courses. And I'm sure many of us are culprits of this. How many courses do you have that you have signed up to that you have not completed? On Udemy, LinkedIn Learning, Coursera, you know, maybe even Foresight BI. You are probably one of these 257 hours. Who knows, right? So that's it. That's one metric. Average completion time. So the other metric is students with more than one course. This one, what's the approach to use? Let's start like this for this one, right? Your students, they are inside the users table. They are inside the users table, okay? And what are we trying to show again? Students with more than one course, okay? So your students are inside the users table. Their enrollments are inside the enrollment table. So one thing you can do is you can go to the students table itself. So go to the users table itself. These are your students, okay? Now what I'm trying to do with these students is I want to create a new column. And what I want on this column is for each student, I want to check how many enrollments they have in the enrollment table. Okay? Now, the logic to do this is very simple. Student number 1 is 807-246-7802. 0802-46708. 802-46708. So I want to go to enrollment. I want to go to user ID. I want to look for, I hope I remember, 80 what? I don't know. 806427006. I'm sure I'm wrong. Yeah. So what is it again? On the student side, students, users. Okay, I think I should type it out so it's easy for me to see it. 802-46708. Okay, so that's what I want. So on the enrollment, I want to check the enrollment of this person. Remember that this table, the users, is related to the enrollment table. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to go to the enrollment table and I'm looking for that guy, which is 802-46708. When I click OK, okay, there is another filter here that shouldn't be there. So the guy has one course, just one, right? The guy has one course. So what I want to do is on the users table, I want it to show one. For this guy here, show one. So to do that, you create a new column like this, and then you are going to say number of courses. So number of courses, and it is going to be, of course, you want to count. So we want to do a count. Again, count X. Count X. Now, count X again wants a table. It wants a table. The table we are going to